Imagine living in a world without guns, bombs, or modern technology. Your only weapons are sticks, stones, and fire. Then one day, someone accidentally creates a strange black powder. At first, it looks completely harmless. But the moment it touches a flame, boom! A loud explosion shakes the ground, smoke fills the air, and for the very first time in history, humans witness a force powerful enough to change civilization forever. That mysterious black powder would eventually lead to cannons, muskets, rockets, and modern firearms. But here's the real question. Who discovered it? Was it a brilliant inventor, a fearless warrior, or was it simply one of history's biggest accidents? Today, we're traveling thousands of years into the past to uncover the incredible story of how one unexpected discovery changed the fate of humanity forever. Long before cities covered the earth, before massive castles, before kingdoms fought with cannons, humans survived in a very different world. Every single day was a battle against hunger, against dangerous animals, against freezing winters, and sometimes against other humans. Their weapons were simple: sharp stones, wooden spears, heavy clubs. Later came bows and arrows. These inventions helped people hunt more efficiently and defend themselves, but every weapon still had one thing in common. They depended entirely on human strength. If you wanted to throw a spear farther, you needed stronger muscles. If you wanted to shoot an arrow faster, you needed years of practice. No one could imagine a weapon powered by something invisible, something that could unleash enormous force in less than a second. To ancient people, that idea would have sounded like magic. Yet nature had already hidden the secret. Humans simply hadn't discovered it. Long before people dreamed of creating explosions, they first had to master something even more important. No invention in human history transformed survival as much as fire. It gave warmth during freezing nights. It kept dangerous predators away. It allowed people to cook food, making meals safer and more nutritious. Fire even changed the human body over thousands of years, helping early societies grow stronger and healthier. But fire wasn't only useful for survival. Curious minds began experimenting with it. What happens if different plants are burned? What if strange rocks are placed into the flames? What if different powders are mixed together? Most experiments ended in failure. Some created colorful flames. Others produced thick smoke. But every failed attempt taught people something new. Without realizing it, humanity was slowly moving toward one of the greatest discoveries in history. And when that moment finally arrived, it wasn't planned. It wasn't expected. It happened completely by accident. That accident would change warfare forever. For thousands of years, humans had been searching for ways to become stronger. They created sharper blades, built stronger shields, designed better bows. Every new invention gave them an advantage over their enemies. But all of these weapons had limits. A sword could only cut as far as a person could swing it. An arrow could only travel as far as a bow could launch it. Humans wanted something different, something that could create power without relying only on muscles. And surprisingly, the answer would not come from a battlefield. It would come from experiments, curiosity, and a little bit of luck. Thousands of years ago, in ancient China, people were searching for ways to create medicines and discover secrets about nature. Some of these experiments were performed by people who were trying to create a substance that could bring eternal life. They mixed different minerals, chemicals, and natural materials together, hoping to discover something extraordinary. But instead of finding immortality, they discovered something far more dangerous. A substance that could create fire and explosions. A substance that would eventually become known as gunpowder. The earliest forms of gunpowder were created by mixing three important ingredients: charcoal, sulfur, and a special mineral called saltpeter. Individually, these materials seemed ordinary. Charcoal was simply burned wood. Sulfur was a yellow mineral found in nature. Saltpeter was a crystal-like substance that could be collected from certain environments. But when these three ingredients were combined, something completely different happened. The mixture became extremely powerful. When exposed to fire, it released a massive amount of energy almost instantly. Flames, smoke, pressure, and a sudden explosion. For ancient people, this must have seemed impossible. They had controlled fire for thousands of years. But this was different. This was fire that could be carried. Fire that could be stored. Fire that could be released whenever humans wanted. A new age had begun. At first, gunpowder was not created as a weapon. Early experiments focused on understanding its strange properties. People were fascinated by its ability to create loud sounds, bright flashes, and powerful reactions. Some used it for celebrations. Ancient fireworks became one of the first peaceful uses of gunpowder. The night sky could suddenly be filled with light and explosions. Something that once seemed terrifying became a source of entertainment. But humans have always searched for ways to turn discoveries into advantages. And eventually, people realized that this explosive power could be used for something much more serious. The same force that created beautiful lights in the sky could also destroy walls, defeat armies, and change battles forever. Slowly, gunpowder moved from laboratories and experiments to the battlefield. The earliest gunpowder weapons looked nothing like the guns we know today. They were simple, crude, and sometimes even dangerous for the person using them. One of the first examples was the fire lance. It was a weapon that attached a small gunpowder tube to the end of a spear. When activated, it released flames, smoke, and sometimes small pieces of material toward an enemy. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't powerful by modern standards. But it introduced a revolutionary idea. A weapon that could use explosive energy instead of only human strength. This changed everything. For the first time in history, a person with a simple device could create a force far greater than their own body. The world of warfare was beginning to transform. But this was only the beginning. The real revolution was still coming. Because humans were about to take this discovery and create something that would reshape kingdoms, destroy ancient defenses, and completely change the way wars were fought. The next step would lead to the birth of the cannon. For centuries, castles and fortresses were considered almost impossible to defeat. Massive stone walls protected kingdoms from invading armies. Soldiers could stand behind these walls and survive attacks from swords, arrows, and traditional weapons. A powerful castle could resist enemies for months or even years. But then, something changed. Humans discovered that gunpowder could do something no sword or arrow could ever do. It could destroy walls. Before gunpowder weapons existed, armies had to find ways around powerful defenses. They used ladders to climb walls. They created massive wooden machines to break gates. They surrounded cities and waited for enemies to run out of supplies. But gunpowder introduced a completely new strategy. Instead of trying to climb over walls, humans could now break through them. The first cannons were simple compared to modern weapons. They were large metal tubes that used gunpowder to launch heavy objects at incredible speed. The idea was surprisingly simple. Place gunpowder inside the cannon. Add a projectile. Light the powder. And let the explosion create enough pressure to launch the object forward. At first, these weapons were unreliable. Sometimes they exploded before firing. Sometimes they were difficult to aim. Sometimes they caused more problems for their owners than their enemies. But with time, humans improved the design. Cannons became stronger, more accurate, and more powerful. Soon, armies around the world began adopting this new technology. The battlefield was never the same again for thousands of years. Warfare was built around strength and skill. A warrior's training determined their success. A soldier with a sword needed years of practice. An archer needed incredible accuracy. A knight needed expensive armor and years of combat experience. But gunpowder changed the rules. Now, a weapon could create enormous damage without requiring the same level of physical strength. A person who had never lifted a sword could operate a firearm. A small group of soldiers with gunpowder weapons could defeat a much larger force using traditional weapons. This changed not only battles, but entire societies. Kings wanted stronger armies. Countries wanted better weapons. and nations began competing to develop more powerful gunpowder technology. The race had begun. After cannons became successful, inventors began asking a new question. What if this power could become smaller? Instead of using huge weapons that required multiple soldiers, could humans create something portable? Something a single person could carry? This idea eventually led to the development of early firearms. The first guns were very different from modern weapons. They were heavy, slow, and difficult to use. A soldier often had to carefully load gunpowder and a projectile before every shot. Compared to today's technology, they were extremely basic. But they represented something revolutionary. For the first time, humans had created a handheld machine that could release explosive power. The relationship between humans and weapons had changed forever. The discovery of gunpowder was not just about creating weapons. It changed the entire world. It influenced how countries expanded. It changed how armies fought. It transformed engineering and science. And it showed humanity something important. A simple discovery could have consequences far beyond what anyone imagined. The people who first experimented with strange powders and chemicals could never have predicted what their discovery would become. They were not trying to create modern firearms. They were simply exploring the unknown. But sometimes, the greatest inventions in history begin with curiosity. A question, an experiment, and an unexpected result. The story of gunpowder is not just the story of a weapon. It is the story of human curiosity. A simple mixture of ordinary materials became one of the most powerful discoveries in history. What began as ancient experiments with minerals and chemicals eventually changed the way humans fought, explored, and built civilizations. Gunpowder changed the balance of power. Small kingdoms could challenge larger enemies. New armies could rise. Old defenses could fall. And the world entered a new era where technology became one of the greatest advantages a civilization could possess. But perhaps the most fascinating part of the story is that the people who first discovered gunpowder had no idea what they had created. They were not looking for a weapon that would transform warfare. They were simply searching for answers. And that curiosity led to a discovery that would echo through thousands of years of human history. Today, when we think about explosions and firearms, we often think about modern science. Advanced machines, powerful engines, complex technology. But the foundation of that journey began centuries ago with a simple idea: controlling energy. Ancient humans learned that hidden inside ordinary materials was incredible power. They learned how to release that power. And over generations, humans continued improving that knowledge. From early gunpowder mixtures, to cannons, to firearms, to rockets and modern technology, each invention built upon the discoveries that came before it. The world we live in today is connected to those early experiments carried out thousands of years ago. The discovery of gunpowder teaches us something important about human history. The biggest changes do not always begin with huge plans. Sometimes they begin with curiosity. Someone asking, "What happens if I try this? What happens if these materials are combined? What if there is something we don't understand yet?" Throughout history, humans have always searched for new possibilities. Some discoveries improved lives. Some changed the course of nations. And some, like gunpowder, did both. It became a tool for celebration and a tool of destruction. It showed humanity that every invention carries responsibility. The power itself is not good or evil. The way humans choose to use it determines its impact. Thousands of years ago, a few simple ingredients created a reaction that nobody could have predicted. A small discovery in the ancient world would eventually reshape armies, destroy old defenses, and transform human civilization forever. The first explosion was not just a moment of fire and smoke. It was the beginning of a new chapter in human history. A chapter where knowledge became power, and where one accidental discovery changed the world forever. But this raises another question. What other discoveries are hidden around us today, waiting for someone curious enough to find them?